but that's another issue. About 6 weeks before the election, I got a check in the mail for $50. It was a property tax rebate. And on it, it was mentioned that it was for hardworking Pennsylvania taxpayers. Now, it turns out that only what people got this property tax rebate?
People who pay property tax?
Yeah, and people who own property. And this, my politics might be showing here, but that's okay sometimes as long as I'm honest about it. But I think if you think it through, you'll see where I'm coming from. I understand why they only give property tax rebates to homeowners who actually directly pay the property tax, even though everybody technically pays property tax. Many of you just pay it indirectly. What am I talking about?
Other taxes.
If you pay some conglomerate that owns an apartment complex rent, part of that rent goes towards what? Them paying their property taxes. They get the rebate, not you, when in fact you were the one who paid it as far as I'm concerned. You paid it for them. In other words, everybody technically pays the tax indirectly. Now there's a reason why this is a token gesture. Compared to the almost $2,000 a year I pay for it, that's a what?
Small percentage.
Yeah, that's like a $5. And a $5 is not much money. It's not much money. But nonetheless, many people say, wow, $50! And they forget that it's a drop in the bucket. And it was conveniently done not long before the election. And on top of that, there's a reason why you wouldn't want to give it to people who indirectly pay property taxes. And maybe I'm looking at this a little more cynically than I ought to be. What do our elected officials know about voting statistics?
Older people are usually like
Republicans,
and younger people are Democrats.
Yeah.
Well, the younger people have to pay for like rent.
Yeah. Well, they know that renters are oftentimes are less likely to vote anyway. In other words, they're throwing money at people who they think are likely to vote. Now that might be getting a little too sinister here. But if I were a political gamesman, I would keep that kind of stuff in mind. I would grease the palms of people who I thought I could buy votes from. Now notice calling it buying votes might be overstepping a little bit too, but if you know anything about practical psychology, you know that if you do people favors, they are likely to have an innate drive to want to repay that favor. And you can use that human instinct against other people. It's what Dr. Robert Cialdini in his book Influence calls the gifting principle. If you give a person a gift, they have a tendency to want to reciprocate that gift. And sometimes the urge is very, very strong. And he gives some interesting examples in his book. It's well worth checking out. I think it's like in the 9th edition or something like that. But yeah, I've seen the book being used in like advertising and business courses too. It's because it's a book in practical psychology. But yeah, beware of token gestures, because indeed they can sometimes have strong psychological appeal. And this is one of the reasons why I don't really emphasize this one in the chapter, because I think it's more of a psychological faux pas than a logical fallacy per se. Now we are just about out of time. I am going to look these over. We're going to, first thing on Monday, we're going to go over the homework questions. I sent you the homework for Monday. What you have to do for Monday is I'm asking you to go outside of the textbook. Find an example out in the real world of what you believe to be one of the fallacies committed from this chapter. Explain why you think it commits that fallacy as best you can in your own words. This is one of those taking it out to the real world kind of exercises. Now, if you read my email, I tell you there are rules. if you go to a fallacy website and just rip somebody else's example, you will get a zilch for it, because that counts as the big P. Plagiarism. I would rather you do your own work and not get it right than to just grab somebody else's work and not have gotten anything out of the endeavor. If you put in honest efforts on this thing, you will get proper credit. But if I know that you took it